This is All India Radio. In the program Spotlight, now we bring you a discussion on Prime Minister's post-budget webinar on PM Vishwakarma Kaushal Samman. The participants are Dr. Sharad Kohli, Economic Analyst, and S. Rangabhashyam, AIR Correspondent.
Mr. Sharad Kohli, a warm welcome to this program and discussion on the PM Vishwakarma Kaushal Samman Yojana, wherein the Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi, today addressed a post-budget webinar, and he mentioned a number of things which we will be discussing in this program. But to begin with, the Prime Minister said that we need to have a targeted approach for the area of skill development, and especially in this particular field of Vishwakarma Yojana, which is basically targeted at craftsmen and traditional artisans, especially in the villages. What would you say in the targeted approach, what all should be included in order to benefit the entire community?
Well, a very warm greetings to all the listeners of All India Radio at the outset. I think this is probably the last of series of webinars which have been planned after the budget to apprise the people of the country as to what is the budget all about, to help them understand budget better and to help them understand the nuances of the budget, especially when a budget announcement pertains to a particular section of the society, to a particular section of business, to a particular section of any initiative which the government has launched. This is indeed a very catchy one because we call it as PMKSY, the Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Samman Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Vishwakarma Kaushal PVKSY, spell it in a different way. So I think it's so rightly called, we call them as Vishwakarma. You see, Vishwakarma comes traditionally from our mythology, where Vishwakarma was the architect, he was the builder, he was the one who designed the whole world, it is if you go by the mythology. And I think these are the people who have been ignored for all these, ever after independence. Each section or each region of our country has a specialization. Even today, when you travel within the country, let's say you reach a place in Uttar Pradesh, say for example, Firozabad. What happens the moment you land in Firozabad? The first thing you ask when you travel around the town is what is special in the city, and then somebody comes and tells you that glasswork in this city is very specialized. We've got so many industries of glasswork. And you land, suppose in Banaras, somebody tells you that carpet making here, or Banarsi silk is very, very popular. You land in Saharanpur, they say woodwork of this area is very popular. Now, what does this mean? This basically means that there are trained hands who are very good at doing it. They have been doing it for generations altogether. It's been passed on from one generation to the other. So now, if we do not recognize their skill, if we do not recognize their competence, if we do not recognize their importance in the whole value chain, I think I personally observed, I went to Banaras some time ago and I spoke to some of the Banarsi silk manufacturers. They said that some of them who were probably not been able to avail the government schemes, they said we will be hesitant to pass it on to our next generation. So I think these skills are highly valued. They need to be recognized, and as Prime Minister rightly said, that these small artisans, these small craftsmen, these small skills can turn into very, very valuable businesses. The only thing they need is a perfect platform from the government. The only thing they need is recognition. The only thing they need is that this is properly commercialized. That is, in other words, if I put it in simple words, that they should be able to get monetary returns on the skill that they have. And we should not forget that each skill is region specialized. That is, if somebody is making carpets in Kashmir, in no other part of the country, similar kind of artwork, similar kind of handicraft can be done. If somebody is doing glass cutting work in Firozabad, nowhere else in the country can this glass cut work be done. So I think there is a need to recognize them region by region, which is why Pradhan Mantri Vishwakarma Kaushal Yojana scheme has been introduced, that to bring these people to the forefront, to be able to provide them the platform where they can supply their products and they can be groomed in a manner that it becomes a full-fledged business. So if I say that there are some people who know, let's say, woodwork being done in Saharanpur and the rest of the country doesn't know about it, why shouldn't the rest of the country not know about it? So first is, and this is also, by the way, linked to the vocal for locals, which has been announced some time ago, that if you got a local product, you should be vocal about it. And I think no better time to do it right now, because the world is recognizing India's prowess in so many areas, not just technology, but they should know that India is a land where every 50 to 100 kilometers, not just the language changes, but the specialization and the skill and the specialized product they make also changes, Ranga.
Mr. Kohli, I want to bring in this point of being remunerative and lucrative. We are talking about artisans and craftsmen, especially traditional people who have been, doing it over generations. But the main problem seems to be its remunerativeness. There are a number of middlemen involved in it. A product which is made in a distant district in a certain state, when it comes to a big city or say to the capital, national capital itself, and is sold in a big showroom in Connaught Place or in a mall in Delhi, the number of times the price goes up is really huge. But at the end, the artisan, the craftsman doesn't get the benefit of that because of a number of middlemen. Don't you think the number of middlemen should be reduced to the bare minimum possible, and maybe, whatever cost is involved for transportation or whatever, that should be added to it, and they should be getting a fairly remunerative price for their work?
I completely agree with that. And, I have two viewpoints here. One viewpoint is, first of all, the product should reach the consumers who are connoisseurs, who value that particular handicraft, who value that particular artisan skill, who value that craftsmanship, shall I say. So first of all, it should reach there. And my second point is that it should not reach the end consumer at an exorbitant price, whereas a reasonable price has to be fetched to the artisan, to the craftsman, to the skilled person who's prepared it. Because if you make it too costly, suddenly you have a niche and a very limited number of people who have access. So that also doesn't solve the purpose. I mean, I'm coming to the middleman point in a bit, but that doesn't solve the purpose, because the product becomes so expensive that it doesn't cater to masses, whereas the cost of production of that product may have been very minuscule. With this comes the second point which you mentioned, that what about the middleman? Yes, there has to be a direct distribution system. That is, the product has to reach directly to the consumers. And I have two classical examples here to quote, which is from very much within the government. One is the tribal ministry from the government of India. That has set up tribal hearts now. We've seen tribal hearts coming up at so many places. In fact, if you talk about Delhi, for example, this is just an example. There is a place called Delhi Heart. We all know there are few Delhi Hearts. People who live in Delhi, they must be knowing. People who do not live in Delhi, there is a heart which is created where all the states display their specialized handicraft products. So there is a tribal heart there, which is all the people from the tribal belt who created this product. They are directly reach the people. That is from tribe to the consumer. I call it as T2C model, tribe to consumer straight away. The second and big example, which has been there for a very long time, is Khadi Gram Udyog. Now, these products coming from Khadi background, whether it is Khadi fabric or it is Khadi oils or it is those organic soaps, there are so many things. If you go to a Khadi Gram Udyog, you will probably find hundreds of products. Now, where are they coming from? There are no middlemen. From the village, from where it is being made, it is directly reaching one of the highest end showrooms, say for example in Delhi, because you spoke about Connaught Place. So it reaches that Connaught Place showroom of Khadi Gram Udyog straight away. So this is the way it should be. I think for each, you hit the nail on the head. For each of these products, there has to be a direct linkage to the consumers. You're right. More the middlemen, the more the remuneration or more the money which the artisans actually deserve, it gets disappeared in the middleman. If I'm making a product which is worth 100 rupees and there are three middlemen, so from 100 it goes up to 200, from 200 it goes up to 1,000, from 1,000 it goes up to 3,000, and finally the end consumer gets it for 5,000. So imagine a product which was made for 100 rupees reached the end consumer of 5,000 rupees. So two losses here. One loss is to the artisan. He did not get anywhere near 5,000. I mean, all he got was 100 rupees. Yeah. Second loss, which I mentioned in the beginning, that you restricted the distribution or sale of that product to a niche category of the society. It could not reach the masses. Whereas if this 100 rupee product was sold for 500, probably 1,000 more consumers would have consumed. Now because it reached 5,000, the consumers cannot consume because it is beyond the reach of so many people. So I think this has got a double whammy on these artisans. Government, by way of this Pradhan Mantri Vishwakarma Kaushal Yojana, is trying to create an atmosphere or trying to create an environment where these small artisans and handicraft, they can become small businesses themselves. My message, if people who are listening to this program today, my message to these artisans, and I'm sure All India Radio has got reach pan-India. It reaches the remotest corners of the country. So my message to them is that if you are an artisan, if you are a craftsman, if you've got a skill where you're developing a product which is traditional to your place, which is exclusive to your place, which is not developed by any other person in anywhere in the country, please be vocal about it and please travel around. Please find out where this can be sold. Do not just fall in the hands of people who are there to fleece you, who are going to take away your product. You know, ye to itne ka hi bikega, isse zyada nahi bikega. Please don't get carried away by such statements. Do contact the government. See, government has got its own e-marketing place now. We've got GEM, the government e-marketing. You can even put your products there, but try and reach the consumers directly to be able to realize the value, Ranga.
Mr. Kohli, I want to bring in this point itself, which even the Prime Minister touched upon. He actually, prompted and prodded the Vishwakarmas for the next level. He said that the government's aim is that Vishwakarmas of today should become, entrepreneurs of tomorrow, and that should be sustainable. Having said that, we do believe that it is not an easy thing, and all these artisans, these craftsmen do need hand-holding. So do you think that there should be some nodal agency or an organization which does all that, whether it is related to giving loans or hand-holding, marketing, brand promotion, all these things is done, and for the initial, a couple of months or maybe a couple of years, and once the artisan becomes an entrepreneur in himself, then he can, look after himself.
Ranga, you sort of partly answered the question yourself as well, because I think the whole Pradhan Mantri Vishwakarma Kaushal Samman Yojana is about the same thing what you spoke, that about when you make an announcement in the budget, it's not just an announcement. When you say that, the hand-holding is inbuilt, it is inherent to the scheme, because I'm sure the government through Ministry of Handicrafts is going to reach out to these people. As I mentioned a few, let's say there is a paper mache industry, there is embroidery industry, there is, chicken work in Lucknow, there is carpet making in Jammu and Kashmir, there is glass cut work, as I said, in Firozabad, there is metal work being done in Muradabad. So I think this Ministry of Handicraft, through its various nodal agencies, is going to reach out to these people and will probably formally register these artisans with itself. So if they want to, once they get registered, they will be, I have a feeling that this is how the scheme will look like at the end of the day, that they will be given certificates by the ministry and they will be given a roadmap on how to take their product forward to be able to convert it into an MSME, into a small business where they can scale up their operations in a manner that they not just reach the Indian market, but they are also able to export. Having said that, I must tell you that some of the artisans and handicrafts in Saharanpur, Muradabad, and for that matter in Kashmir, they've got very good export exposure. But then it is not to the extent which it should be. We've all heard of GI tags. GI tags is basically, attached to a particular product, which is probably grown and which is exclusive to that area. I have a feeling, I'm making a statement today on All India Radio, which I'm doing for the first time. That is, these artisans, these products can very well have GI tags, because I have personally traveled to the places which I just mentioned, and I have seen that this kind of skill, this kind of, acumen, this kind of knowledge, and the kind of traditional heritage that they have behind them exists nowhere. If something is specialized in, let's say, Banaras, it exists nowhere. If something is in Firozabad, it's nowhere. If something is in Kashmir, it's nowhere. If something is in Lucknow, it's nowhere else. So I think they are very well capable, and once you have a GI tag, that is, this particular product is manufactured or grown or probably designed in this area, you get exclusivity and your international demand suddenly shoots up. So I'm sure this is in the mind of the Handicraft Ministry, and these nodal agencies are going to reach out to these artisans. They will be registered, they will be issued certificates, they will be provided a platform to market and distribute these products across the country, Ranga.
Yeah. On that optimistic note, let's wind up this discussion. Mr. Sharad Kohli, thank you so much for joining us in this program.
My pleasure. Thank you.
You were listening to a discussion on Prime Minister's Post-Budget Webinar on PM Vishwakarma Kaushal Samman. The participants were Dr. Sharad Kohli, Economic Analyst, and S. Rangabhashyam, AIR Correspondent. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel News on AIR Official. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.